you know, as a coach, and I've done a lot of sports coaching too, but as a coach, I find that there are some really important models to understand. I think DISC is important. You know, I think if you wanted to branch out a little bit, you could go down the path of understanding, you know, emotional intelligence. That's a model that we use a lot in leadership, in business. These are not really complex models to get your head around, but I feel like they're important if you want to understand people better. As well as DISC, I think it's important that you understand, you know, what we talk about, you know, learning styles. You know, and most coaches, as I was saying to Gary, will think that that's more about visual, auditory, kinesthetic, but that's just how people like to take on board information. It's not how they process information at all. Most importantly, in regard to learning styles, I think the most useful model is there's a model called the Honey and Mumford. You know, we've got an article on that to explain it, which I can send to you. But the Honey and Mumford learning styles model looks at the 4 different stages of learning and how different people have different preferences for one stage over another. You know, on top of that, okay, so emotional intelligence is your capacity for understanding how you are emotionally feeling yourself, for recognizing emotions in others, and then having the ability to basically manipulate and change and get into a position where you are, you know, in a motivated state, and emotional self-control is a big part of it. You know, so if you've got a player that's really struggling to, you know, control themselves on the field and they get carried away, then suddenly they start giving away penalties. Who has done an emotional intelligence profile on every single student. When he's coaching the team on the weekend, there's a student who's giving away more penalties than any other player on the field. Guess what they find out? You know, he's lowest in his EI competency for emotional self-control. You know, so there are some aspects of that which link directly to sport. You know, and there are some other important models I think you can learn. Certainly this one. You know, stages of team development. You know, I'm happy to send you something on all of these if you're interested, but I can put it in a nutshell for you. But you know, how does a team actually form and develop, and the issues that you might have with various team members. I think all of these things are important to understand so that you know that you actually know what's going on in front of you when your team may be fighting and arguing. Now that's a stage of a team's development. It actually means they're making progress, but if it goes for too long, there's a big issue. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I could put a couple more up, but there's some important models to understand from my perspective, because it's all about, as we said before, working with people. Okay. Well, you want more detailed facts and figures type information. Yeah. But whether you want to actually experience it or theoretically understand it is 2 different things. The basic rule with this one, which is useful just to keep in mind, so whether you present your information in a visual format, an auditory, a kinesthetic format, is what's, as I mentioned to these guys before, what's most important considering the information you're presenting. You know, so if you're trying to explain, you know, the tactics and the strategy, well, you're much better off, even if the athlete or player is auditory in their preference, you're much better showing them a diagram of what you're talking about, or showing them a video clip of a team that is doing it well. Does that sort of follow? Even if they're auditory.